Something truly unusual is unfolding in the global economy, and the blow is landing directly on America's weak spot. Across the country, stores are in panic, and the reason is far from temporary supply chain disruptions. American food exporters, the very foundation of the nation's trade power for decades, are shutting down business and moving it to China. Factories, supply routes, and billions of dollars that once created jobs in America are now flowing into Beijing's orbit. And it is not just about exports. Financial flows paint an even more troubling picture. Investors who once considered Wall Street the safest place for capital are shifting billions into China's $19 trillion stock market. It is not only factories leaving, trust is leaving too, and trust is what shapes the future of global finance. All this is happening at the very moment Donald Trump insists that tariffs make America stronger. But behind the loud slogans lies another reality. Supply chains are clogged, costs are rising, and Main Street businesses are struggling to keep their doors open. While Washington fuels confrontation, Beijing plays it differently, strengthening domestic markets, supporting tech companies, and presenting itself as the stable partner global investors are looking for. The contrast is clear. In this video, we will examine why exporters are turning away from the US, why China is so attractive to foreign money, and how all this is reshaping the balance of power in the global economy. But most importantly, what it means for American families and businesses already feeling the pressure. The picture inside America is far from the promises. When Donald Trump introduced sweeping tariffs, he assured the nation that jobs would return, industry would revive, and billions would flow into the treasury. Reality turned out to be the opposite. Prices went up, product choice shrank, and trade flows shifted elsewhere. The numbers behind the policy speak for themselves. The White House raised tariffs on food and beverages to 50%. This triggered a chain reaction in global markets. Instead of pressuring other countries into concessions, tariffs simply pushed them to seek new directions, and that direction was China. Exporters from Brazil, India, and Europe are rerouting shipments there. Where demand is growing, profits are higher, and rules are predictable. Trump's idea was to weaken competitors and protect American producers. In practice, it turned Beijing into the new center of world trade. The problem is that the goods hit hardest, coffee, shrimp, tea, are not items the US can produce in sufficient amounts. They are everyday essentials on which millions of American families and businesses depend. What was presented as protection has become a burden. With every new tariff, supermarkets, restaurants, and suppliers pay more, while China only strengthens its position in world trade. Brazil is the world's largest coffee producer. For years, American roasters relied on its beans to fill US cups. Roughly 1/3 of all coffee in America comes from Brazil. But Trump's tariffs changed the equation overnight by imposing a 50% tax on imports from Brazil. This is one of the highest tariffs in the entire US system. For consumers, the result is obvious. Coffee prices shot up. Experts warn that a bag of beans could rise by a quarter. For cafes, it means the cost of each cup rises by about 7%, even if the shop absorbs part of the expense. On paper, 7% may not seem much, but multiplied by millions of cups sold daily, it drains billions from household budgets each year. For families already squeezed by rising food prices, even a small increase in the cost of coffee becomes another blow. Brazil did not waste any time. In July alone, more than 180 Brazilian companies officially registered to supply China. Analysts call this an unprecedented surge. They are entering a market that is not only growing but changing at record speed. Coffee culture is booming in China. Young professionals and students are creating massive demand for new drinks. Luckin Coffee, often described as China's Starbucks, recently signed a billion-dollar contract with Brazilian suppliers, securing the partnership. And while Americans prepare to pay more for every cup, Brazil is opening doors to a market that is larger, more dynamic, and more profitable. What Washington framed as pressure on foreign exporters has in practice given them a new opportunity. The result is that the US faces rising prices at home, while Brazil strengthens ties with Beijing. One of the most unexpected turns of Trump's tariff policy is unfolding right on supermarket shelves. American families are paying record-high prices for meat, corn, and other staples. while households across Latin America are seeing prices fall. A policy designed to protect farmers and producers in the U.S. has turned into a heavy burden for American consumers and relief for their neighbors. The mechanics are simple. Higher tariffs made U.S. goods less attractive on the global market. Buyers who once relied on American exports quickly found new suppliers. Mexico, heavily dependent on U.S. corn and processed foods, shifted purchases toward South America, to Brazil and Argentina. Their large harvests and competitive prices filled the gap and allowed supermarkets in the region to offer cheaper goods. The imbalance is clear. American families are paying higher food bills, while Latin American households benefit from falling prices. A strategy sold as protection has become a blow to U.S. consumers and handed competitors in South America a serious advantage. And it is not just exporters leaving the U.S. Investors are also redirecting capital, pulling money out of American markets and sending it into China. In effect, even Wall Street itself is hedging against the dollar. Not long ago, it seemed obvious. The Chinese market was too risky. Harsh crackdowns on tech, education, and real estate erased hundreds of billions in market value. Washington's escalation of the tariff war only added instability. Trillions of dollars flowed out, and many fund managers advised clients to stay away. But in 2025, the picture changed dramatically. The Chinese stock market, valued at $19 trillion, once again began attracting global capital. The Shanghai Composite Index rose to its highest level in decades, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng moved onto a recovery path after years of decline. Major international funds are once again buying shares in sectors such as semiconductors, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence, the very industries that define the future of global growth. Perceptions have shifted completely. A market once considered untouchable is now seen as too large and too influential to ignore. Money that only yesterday was leaving is now returning, drawn by China's scale and new momentum. And this raises uncomfortable questions. How did a market written off as unstable regain trust and pull in foreign capital again? And why, against this backdrop, does the U.S. look like the country stumbling rather than leading? To understand why investors are returning to China, one must look closely at U.S. policy. Trump's strategy toward Beijing revolved around a single tool: tariffs. Duties were raised to levels modern trade had never seen. At one point, the average tariff on Chinese goods exceeded 60%, and by April 2025, some categories were taxed at rates of up to 145%. The goal was clear: to choke Chinese exports, revive American industry, and demonstrate Washington's dominance to the global market. But the reality turned out very different. American companies dependent on Chinese components faced sharply rising costs. Supply chains became tangled, and inflation, already a challenge for the Federal Reserve, only worsened as additional expenses were passed directly onto consumers. U.S. Treasury bonds were forced to offer higher yields due to concerns about managing national debt, while Chinese bonds attracted capital with their stability and lower risks. This has driven a global reassessment of investment strategies, where capital no longer automatically flows to the U.S., but actively seeks alternatives. The result is simple. Foreign investors are rebalancing. China is not without risks, but its stable returns and fiscal discipline make it an increasingly attractive magnet for long-term investments compared to the United States. And so the inevitable question arises: if investors themselves are voting with their wallets, how long can Washington pretend it still leads the game? And to stay updated on these shifts, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.